Hello, I'm Darwin, and welcome again to my Learn Hub. Um, in clinical assessment for week 6, I would be discussing goniometric measurement for um, wrist flexion, wrist extension, and as well as wrist radial deviation and wrist ulnar deviation. So, okay, so for wrist flexion and extension, there are 3 points that we need to locate first: the bony landmarks, because that's where we're gonna be putting the axis, um, the the steady arm, the non-moving arm, and then the moving arm, because we are gonna be measuring from this position. We're gonna be measuring that range of motion. So the first one that we need to find is the axis. So the axis, this point, is called the trichotrom. So that's where we're gonna put the axis of the goniometer. And the non-moving arm obviously is on this side. We are gonna be looking for the um, the ulna. There you go. That's the ulna. So for the moving arm, which is this side, we are looking at locating the fifth metacarpal. So you have 1, you have 2, 3, 4, 5. So this metacarpal over here. So you go on the lateral side, and that'll be the marker or the reference for the moving arm when you put the goniometer. So those will be the bony landmarks for measuring the wrist flexion, and the same thing goes for wrist extension. We just need to measure the movement from here to up there. So that kind of measurement. Okay, now for wrist radial deviation, we're gonna change the orientation. So from this orientation, we're gonna go posterior on the wrist, or the dorsal part. Okay, so the bony landmarks for this one. The fulcrum, the axis of the goniometer, goes right here, because what we're going to be measuring is, let's say for example, we'll start with wrist radial deviation. So from this position, the wrist is gonna go that way. You're gonna move it that way. So from this position, going that way. So if you see the axis should be right around here, and this point is called the capitate. That's gonna be the axis. And then the non-moving arm, which is right here, because that's the steady side, we will be looking at the lateral epicondyle. So if we're gonna be measuring from the top, so here's the lateral epicondyle. So from the capitate going towards the lateral epicondyle, that's our reference point for the non-moving arm. And then we go to the moving arm. From the capitate, we will take the middle metacarpal, which is right here, the third metacarpal. So 1, 2, 3, right there. You can see the ligament. That's the top of the middle metacarpal. So when we put the goniometer, this would be the movement of the part that we're going to be measuring. So capitate, again, recap, capitate for the axis, and then the non-moving arm would be the lateral epicondyle. That's your reference. And then the moving arm would be right here on the middle metacarpal. So for wrist radial deviation, you're going to measure the movement from here towards the thumb. And then for ulnar deviation, you're going to be measuring the movement from here going down towards the pinky. And that's it. Okay, so we're gonna start with measuring Stephanie's wrist flexion. So we're gonna have Stephanie on a seated position with arms relaxed, elbows flexed, and the fingers must also be relaxed, hanging. And before I measure it, I'm gonna watch how the range of motion of her wrist goes. So from this position, how far it will go. So as far as you can go, Steph?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now that I know that it's gonna go this way, now I can start positioning the goniometer, and there are three bony landmarks that we need to figure out. First is the shaft of the ulna, so that's where we're gonna put the proximal arm, the non-moving arm, and then the triquetrum, and that will be our axis, our fulcrum. So right here and here, and then the moving arm would be placed on the fifth metacarpal. So this is our fifth metacarpal right here by the pinky, or where the pinky is. Okay, so non-moving arm on the ulna, shaft of the ulna aligned, and then axis on the triquetrum, and then the moving arm on the fifth metacarpal. Okay, go ahead, let's do the wrist flexion. So she is at 75. So let's list that down. 75 degrees. Okay, now we're gonna take the measurement for her wrist extension. So same thing, bony landmarks. We're gonna locate the shaft of the ulna, the triquetrum, and the fifth metacarpal. So wrist flexion goes like this from this position, and you flex the wrist up like that, and the fingers, just relaxed fingers, there you go. Okay, so now that we determined that it's gonna go this far, now I can put the goniometer on the proper position. Okay, non-moving arm on the shaft of the ulna, the axis on the triquetrum, and then the moving arm on the fifth metacarpal. Okay, Stephanie, go ahead and extend your wrist. Okay, 75. She seems like she has the same wrist flexion and, okay, go ahead and relax, and extension. Thank you. Hi! So we're gonna measure, I'm gonna show you how to measure radial deviation and ulnar deviation. This is ulnar deviation, and from this position, move that way, that's the radial deviation. So first, we need to put the patient, the person, in a seating position with the shoulders abducted 90 degrees and the elbow flex 90 degrees as well. And then the next step is to find the bony landmarks. Previously, I've located her capitate, and that which will become our axis, and then our proximal arm, the non-moving arm, will be located on her lateral epicondyle. So this is the lateral epicondyle. The non-moving arm would go like this, and the moving arm would be based on the movement of the middle metacarpal, which is her third one, the middle one. Which, can you kind of extend your wrist, Stephanie? There you go. See it right there. See the wrinkles? There you go. Okay, relax. All right, so let's put the goniometer on the capitate and align it towards the lateral epicondyle, the non-moving arm. And then let's start with the ulnar deviation first. So Stephanie, go ahead and turn your hand towards me. Okay, so Let's do it again. Hold on, because it kind of moved. Okay, do it again. Perfect. So that's about 30, our radial deviation. 30. Let me list it down. Okay, relax. Go back to starting position. Now for radial deviation. Align it on the lateral epicondyle, axis on the capitate, moving arm, align on the third, the middle finger, the metacarpal rather. Okay, and then go ahead and move towards you, the wrist. So as far as you can go. Okay, hold it. Okay, and relax. Thank you. That's about 20. Thank you.